1996, the Minnesota National Guard began a partnership for peace with the country of Croatia. This year, our state government and community leaders accepted an invitation to expand that relationship. On September 16, 2000, Lieutenant Governor May Shunk and Major General Eugene Andreotti led a delegation of 33 Minnesotans on a week-long tour of Croatia. The delegation, comprised of politicians, educators, business entrepreneurs, media, and Army and Air National Guard members, spent the week learning and sharing ideas. The fast-paced tour began with an information briefing from the United States European Command in Stuttgart, Germany, and proceeded to take them to nearly every corner of Croatia. Special stops to meet officials and visit communities provided the delegation with many memories and many plans.
We met the president, and that was very interesting. I found him to be also a person that is a man of his stature, to be very easy to speak to. He reminded me a lot of our governor. He's very anxious about reforming the country, changing the government over from what used to be a communistic type of government to a democracy, and feels that when they do have democracy, that people will be free and they will be able to deal more with outside business partnerships.
The people have a positiveness that it's infectious. And I think it's a wonderful country with wonderful people. And I think the military, at least the people we met, from the president on down to the lowest soldier in the ranks, want to make sure the country is a success. We visited with the president, a very positive individual. He's supposed to spend a half hour with us. He spent 45 minutes with us. Would have spent longer if he didn't have another appointment. Very personal individual. And again, he was very proud of his country. And he wants to continue these bonds and this networking with the United States, and especially with Minnesota.
A major part of our trip to Croatia was Croatian Minnesotan Representative Tom Ruckovina. Tom, what did you see as the greatest potential for developing further relationships between Minnesota and Croatia?
I think we have a really good opportunity here to have a partnership with the people of both Croatia and Minnesota, and the businesses of Croatia and Minnesota, like we have with the Minnesota National Guard and the Croatian Army. And it was exciting for me, Steve, to be home in the homeland of my grandparents, but it was also exciting to see the spirit and determination of those people. One of the most touching things I saw was in the schools, the programs that they have, and it seems that they are so excited about democracy and peace.
We traveled also to some war-devastated villages, and I felt really good about when I was in Zagreb. I thought I saw a lot of progress. I saw beautiful buildings. I saw wonderful people, talked to fantastic people. But when I got to the villages, I went from feeling very heartwarmed to feeling very heart-wrenched. To listen to their stories of how they managed on so little to just be back home, to make a living, to feel freedom, was, I just began to realize how wonderful it is in America that we have democracy and freedom.
This is an area where they're demining. It's going to take 30 years with 1,000 soldiers, that long, to try to demine those areas in the Balkans. The Croatians, of course, are way ahead of that. They're doing the rail lines, they're doing the roads, but also they're doing soccer fields. They're young kids. And there's landmines they have to be concerned about. That really brought to light to the challenges that they're going to be having, especially from that standpoint.
Professor Emeritus Don Gilmore of the University of Minnesota has in the past traveled to Russia, talking to their journalists and legislators about freedom of the press. Here in Croatia, a land where 10 years ago they certainly had no freedom, and now they seem to have made some progress. What were your impressions of the media in Croatia?
Well, I think they've taken a number of giant steps toward democracy. And I'm impressed with the passion that the younger generation seems to have for a greater freedom, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of movement. It's very, very encouraging. All of their committee meetings in their new parliament, which was democratically elected, and this may be for the first time in the history of Croatia, all their committee meetings meet in secret. There are no equivalents to what we would call public hearings, and there is little access to records as well as to meetings, and this is going to take the passage of laws and independent judges to interpret those laws.
Dolores Henderson is an experienced educator from St. Paul. Dolores, what did you see that made you excited in the Croatian school system?
I was excited about the civic program that they have there dealing with human rights. And I saw where the children were so instilled with values and a drive to deal with democracy and making a difference with their lives as young people. The other piece that I saw was the languages. I was very impressed with how many languages that were taught in the schools.
In the school, I noticed that kids are, even in the villages, that families and children are very dedicated and committed to their education. They know that education is the important step that they must take in order to be successful in life. Many of them know that if they do get a good education, that they may not be able to use that education there in Croatia, that they may have to go to other countries to utilize their education and get good paying jobs. And this is what is sad to the parents. But I guess I have to say, education there, I see kids and teachers so dedicated to their education with very few resources. We took colored pencils and paper and some other school supplies to the villagers. The faces were very sad until we showed them the gifts that we brought, and that's when we saw smiles on the faces of children as well as on the faces of the adults.
My role is working with the military. Visited an Air Force base, Croat Air Force Base. We talked with their leaders. They're all supportive of the democratic government. A lot of their training now is being formed in what the United States trains to, the same standards. Also, we visited a Special Operations Army post by Zadar. And those individuals, again, the same briefings, very similar about the responsibilities and also their human awareness as far as humanitarian responsibilities, working with their communities. In fact, one night I was invited, they said, General, last time you here you talked about you were involved in your communities. And if you want to have a military, it has to have the support of the people. Well, they invited me to open up an art show. And the art gallery happened to be the Officers Club. And I walked in and there were a few hundred people there. And these were professors, and there were science people, musicians, all walks of life. And there I was, the Adjutant General of Minnesota, and I opened up the art display. And I said, dear honored hosts, it's a pleasure to be here. And it's great to see the military and you citizens together as one and supporting one another. That's one of the things that the National Guard has brought about in the United States. We're the community-based defense force.
We went to Dubrovnik, and as we drove into this, as we flew over, I should say, we saw beautiful sights. But when we got in the bus to drive to our hotel, there again, I saw bullet holes in homes, bullet holes in almost every building. I was just amazed that, and later on talking to the people, and I found that, yes, there was war right in that community. They have the mountains on the back side, on the west side of the city, and on the east side is the Adriatic Sea. So the enemy came at them from the mountains, shot down on them, and then they came at them from the water and shot up at them. There are over 30 hotels along the Adriatic coast that have been destroyed by fire like this, or destroyed by missiles. These hotels are available for someone to buy, to renovate, and to do business. Dubrovnik is considered, well, the whole Adriatic coast is considered the pearl for European tourists. And I certainly agree with that after being there and looking at the history, at buildings and churches and different places that have been established in the 10th and 11th century.
And Zadar, which we visited when we visited the Air Force Base and the Special Operations Army Base, we saw a lot of new construction, a lot of hope. In fact, we met with the mayor and we met with the county commissioner, and they're talking about the rebuilding, and what they're looking for is Americans, not for handout, but can we be partners with you? In fact, they asked us, is there a city in Minnesota that we can be a sister city with? So I challenged some of the people on our trip to look around in Minnesota to see if there's another city who would like to partnership with Zadar. Zadar is a community of about 200,000 people along the coastline. They have agriculture, and they do have agribusiness industries there. They do have a cement plant there. But the big thing is that the wonderful people, and they're trying to build from the ground up at this point in time.
Commissioner Gene Hugeson of the Department of Agriculture was interested in the sorts of products that they need in Croatia that perhaps Minnesota could provide. What things did you see that might look fruitful for the future?
Well, certainly there's a lot of differences, I think, from different parts of Croatia. There's parts of the country that are still devastated from the conflict that went on, and so there it's a case of just having to get some basic agriculture back into production. In other parts of the country where they're producing, they don't necessarily have the accessibility to transport those products to markets that might exist as well. I think the thing we heard most often, of course, is they're looking for investment. What are ways that we could be helping to bring some agribusiness kinds of companies into Croatia to help with the moving of products around, not only within the country, but for some export possibilities as well. I think one of the most promising opportunities, though, lie for the tourism industry, simply because as the tourism business increases, the necessity of feeding that new influx of people high-quality products certainly offers some opportunities for what we would call a high-end type of agricultural product. Hopefully that can be one of the areas where we focus some attention.
Commissioner John Swift of the IRRB is from the area where most of the Croatian Minnesotans live, an estimated 80,000 to 100,000. He also led the business delegation in our tour of Croatia. What are your comments about what you found there in our exploration, Commissioner?
Well, I think in keeping really with the theme of this visit, a part of which is trying to support their young democracy, I really think that we as business people believe that you can only have a strong democracy if you have a strong economy. And so we were looking for ways that we could assist them in growing their business, and in a market-driven society that they're trying to move toward, they need to develop entrepreneurship, and they need to be able to get that spirit of the market-driven economy going. And so we looked for possibilities. Of course, it's a very challenging situation when you move from a socialist type culture to a culture where the person is going to be looking for a profit. It's very foreign to them. And so there are a number of challenges ahead for us in this arena. We do, however, agree with them that tourism is probably their best bet now for a rather quick turnaround of the situation that they're in, that tourism could be developed more quickly than anything else. And so I think a part of what we want to carry back in the way of a message to the people of Minnesota and the rest of the United States is that, hey, this is a place that's safe.
Our last trip on Friday afternoon was to Delnice, which is just west, a very short distance, about 40 minutes west of Rijeka. And as we drove there, we went there to look at a different village that, and actually it's the place where my father was born. And he lived there in his teen year, through his teen years, until he went to the war, and World War I. And I met the mayor at the mayor's office too. I was met by my cousin, and I recognized him really as soon as I stepped off the bus because I saw the features of my dad in his face, in his whole body. I saw my dad, and then he showed me a picture of the four brothers, my dad, his dad, and then their two uncles then. So yes, I found my cousin. As we went to the house, this was the same house. It was pretty much the same wood floor, same tile floor. And then from there, well, at the house we looked at pictures and pictures that my dad had sent to them when he was corresponding with them. But after Dad passed away 13 years ago, we did not correspond anymore because Dad wrote and spoke in Croatian and no one else did, and the family is all gone. So it was really too bad that the relationship died with my dad. But I am glad to say that I revived it again. From the home we walked the same path that my dad used to take to the gardens where they do community gardening. Everybody has a patch. And then we went to the cemetery where my grandparents and uncle are laid to rest. From there we went to the church where my dad used to go and stepped inside. There was a prayer service going on, so I did a little prayer as I was there. And then back again to the house, and then from there we traveled. We were there about an hour, and from there we traveled to the military base. And it was at the military base that General Andreotti, myself, and the general of the command there in Delnice lit a candle in memory of the soldiers and people that died to save their country.
Minnesota's first delegation to Croatia was very successful. If you would like to learn more about the trip or about the National Guard, please visit the websites on your screen.